Okay, the next section on Chapter 7 is Section B, measurement of measurement of intellectual development. Sorry, got a bit confused in my book here. All right, now, measurement of intelligence goes back a ways, about a century ago, originally in France, with the work of Alfred Binet and Theodore Simon. And what they were looking for is a test to measure intelligence in the French school system. Now, Binet, one of the authors, assumed that intelligence increased with age, and therefore older children should get more of the questions they were writing correct and get a higher score. In taking this test, the Binet-Simon, the scores result in what's called a mental age, and the mental age shows the intellectual level at which a child is functioning. So a 6-year-old with a score of 6 would show a mental age of 6, like an average 6-year-old. A 6-year-old answering at a mental age of 10 would show that they were advanced, that they were functioning at the level of a 10-year-old. If they got a mental age of 4, that would show that they had some sort of deficit or were behind and were functioning at the chronologically at the mental age of 4. Now, later on, Louis Terman, who was working in the United States at Stanford University, took the Binet-Simon and adapted it for American children, and he tweaked it a little bit so that we could more easily compare scores from one age group to another. So what he did is he developed this concept called the Intelligence Quotient, or the IQ. So what he did with the results of the test that he developed based on the Binet-Simon was he got the score of the mental age, and then you divide the mental age as you get from the Stanford Binet, and you divide it by the chronological age, and you multiply that number times 100. So if you have a 6-year-old whose mental age is 6 divided by their chronological age, which is 6, that gives you 1 times 100. That gives them an IQ of 100. Then if you have a 10-year-old, say, who's functioning at a 10-year-old level, MA divided by CA is 1. 10 divided by 10 is 1. And that gives them an IQ of 100. And so you could say they were relatively equal in their intellectual functioning, because we kind of take the age part out of it, and we're able to compare IQ score to IQ score regardless of the age group. The Stanford Binet is still given ages 2 through adult. And now, when we look at IQ today, so many people have taken this test that we have scores for all kinds of people in all kinds of age groups. And so we're really able to look at IQ scores of people of the same age as well, and compare how anyone scores on this test with anyone else of that age who's taken the test. And here we just have some examples of what some items on the Stanford Binet might look like. These are in your book on page 9.2, and you can see they're geared towards age groups. So questions for 2-year-olds are a bit different than 4, a bit different than 9, a bit different than adult, and you can see assess cognitive abilities at a higher and higher and higher level. Now, a different kind of approach to this, and this was developed in the 1970s by a man named Wechsler, David Wechsler, is the Wechsler intelligence scales. And he developed 3 of them, one for children, which is called the WISC, one for younger children, preschoolers, which is called the WIPSI, and one for adults, which is called the WACE. And he groups test questions that measure different intellectual abilities or different intellectual tasks. For instance, he looks at items that are verbal and what he called non-performance items, like picture completion, block design, picture arrangement, mazes, versus things like comprehensions of words and ideas, math, vocabulary. So things that we're doing that are presented verbally and things that are presented more in a nonverbal way. And so we kind of get a look at two different areas of intellectual functioning, and also helps us take a look at strengths and weaknesses in different areas, but then also an overall intellectual functioning. Now you do get an IQ score from the Wechsler scale, and Wechsler believes that the IQs are divided along what's called a bell curve. So you can see the different percentages of the population who fit along that bell curve. So most people fit in the median or in the middle of the bell curve. 68% of the population will score an IQ somewhere between 85 and 115, and that is considered average. Above and below that, the next 14% are considered either slightly above average or slightly below average, either 70 to 85 or 115 to 130. Then we have above average or below average, which is the next 2%, between 70 and 55, or 130 and 145. And then we have either end of the continuum, which is a very low IQ or a very high IQ, which is 0.1% of the population. So you can see, according to Wechsler and his scales, most of us lie within that, or a good portion of us lie within that median of 68% between an IQ of 85 to 115. Now, there is controversy when it comes to testing for IQ. There does tend to be a cultural bias depending on your cultural upbringing. And part of that is the reasoning behind that is that many of the test items are written by people who then give those tests to people who don't have the same sort of cultural background, who don't have the same sort of education. And so are we really tapping into intelligence, or are we really just tapping into experience and what they've been able to be exposed to? And so there's been a push to have what are called culture-free tests, and this looks at reasoning and problem solving through different kinds of rules of problem solving that we all kind of can do. Most of these tests are nonverbal, meaning there is no reading that's involved, no math that's involved, so not what we typically think of as like academic skills, where many of these intelligence tests require academic skills in order to take them. So these are, what you see on the screen here are some examples of the kinds of questions that might occur on one of these culture-free tests. So the first one, we might look at a series. Which shape comes next in this line? And you choose from 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, which is the next logical shape. Looking at the matrices, which comes next? Which part should we include in this matrix? Now, unfortunately, these tests don't predict academic success as well as other tests, but that could also be that the other tests are measuring more academic skills rather than intelligence. So there's definitely still that controversy out there.